Welcome, everyone, to this deep dive into a book that's been making waves in the business world,
Mm-hmm.
Rethinking Competitive Advantage by Ram Choran.
Right.
Um, we're going to unpack some pretty big questions today, like why are these digital giants like Amazon and Google winning?
Right.
Well, they keep dominating the landscape.
Sure.
And honestly, can anyone else even stand a chance?
It's a great question. And I think what's so fascinating about this book is that it doesn't just say, oh, look at these digital giants.
Right.
They're successful and leave it at that.
Huh.
It really digs into the why and the how,
Exactly.
and it kind of deconstructs their strategies.
Yeah, it feels like they're playing by a completely different set of rules.
Absolutely. It's a whole new playbook. And Rethinking Competitive Advantage actually lays out 6 new rules of competition.
Okay, interesting.
And it shows how companies like Netflix,
Hmm.
Amazon, Alibaba are really putting these rules into action.
Right, so we see Netflix completely disrupting traditional movie studios,
Right.
right? I mean, even Spielberg was publicly criticizing them,
Oh, yeah.
saying they were putting the entire theater system at risk.
He was worried their approach to film releases
Right.
would kill movie theaters.
I mean, I can kind of see his point.
Right.
But what was it about Netflix's strategy that was so groundbreaking and so threatening?
Well, they understood something that a lot of companies missed.
Okay.
They saw that people craved convenience. They
Yeah.
wanted to watch their favorite shows and movies at home
Right.
without having to go to a crowded theater.
Okay, so they capitalized on that desire for convenience.
Exactly. They created a whole new market that didn't exist before.
And they really did change how we consume entertainment.
They pioneered streaming as we know it,
Right.
and they've just kept evolving and growing.
And it wasn't just convenience, it was also about personalization.
Right.
Those Netflix algorithms are eerily good at knowing what I want to watch.
They're amazing at predicting what you'll enjoy, and that's where the power of platforms and ecosystems comes in.
All right, so these algorithms are analyzing massive amounts of data to figure out what we like,
Mm-hmm.
and then they use that data to personalize our recommendations.
Right, and it's not just about recommendations. They also use data to build this vast library of content and to connect with content creators in new ways.
So it's really an intricate system.
Very much so.
But I imagine building these massive platforms and generating all this content must be incredibly expensive.
You would think so.
So how do these digital businesses manage the financial side of things?
That's another area where they differ from traditional companies.
Okay.
They're not as focused on traditional metrics like earnings per share.
So what do they prioritize?
They look at cash flow,
Oh,
and they're all about exponential growth.
so they're willing to operate with negative EPS in the early stages.
Exactly, because they're focused on building scale
Right.
and capturing market share.
So it's a long game.
It's about future dominance rather than immediate profitability.
Yep.
It's like Amazon with their focus on cash, gross margin.
Right.
They're constantly reinvesting in growth,
Right.
and they're still accumulating cash.
That's a very different approach than a lot of traditional companies that are kind of stuck in this cycle of prioritizing short-term earnings.
They are. It's a different way of thinking about business.
So we've talked about how these digital giants think differently.
Mm-hmm.
They're focused on cash flow,
Right,
these complex platforms and ecosystems they build.
right,
But what about the people behind it all?
right.
How did these companies structure themselves?
Well, it's all about creating a social engine.
A social engine.
That's what the book calls it.
Yeah.
It's about the people, the culture,
Right.
and how work is designed to drive innovation and execution.
So it's not just about the technology.
Absolutely not.
The human element is just as important.
Absolutely. It's about having the right people and creating the right environment.
To foster that innovation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these digital companies are often incredibly agile. They operate with small integrated teams,
Right.
decentralized decision-making, and this constant focus on innovation.
So do you have a good example of this in action?
Absolutely. Fidelity Personal Investing is a great example.
Fidelity.
They're not exactly what you think of when you hear cutting-edge tech company,
Right. Definitely not.
but they completely reinvented themselves.
Wow.
They embraced agile principles
Hmm.
and flattened their hierarchy.
So they became a digital company from the inside out.
Exactly. And they did this by focusing on the customer.
How so?
They created these detailed profiles of their ideal customer segments.
Oh, interesting.
They even gave them names like Susie.
Susie.
And Susie was a 37-year-old working mother who represented a key demographic for them.
I see.
And they mapped out Susie's entire customer journey.
So they really tried to understand her experience.
They did. They identified her pain points,
Okay.
and they used all of that to redesign their services.
And their organizational structure.
Exactly. They wanted to make sure they were meeting Susie's needs.
Wow. And did it work?
It did. They saw a surge in new product releases,
Uh-huh.
record revenues and profits.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So by empowering their employees
Right.
and fostering this collaborative culture,
They really transformed themselves.
it's pretty impressive.
It is.
Okay, so these digital companies are clearly doing things differently.
They are.
But what about their leaders?
It's a great question.
Are there certain qualities or skills that set digital leaders apart?
Absolutely. The book really emphasizes this.
So let's talk about what makes a leader successful in this digital age.
One key thing is their ability to think big.
Okay, bigger than traditional leaders.
Way bigger, 10x bigger, 100x bigger. Even
Wow.
they're not just thinking about incremental improvements.
Wow.
They're imagining entirely new possibilities.
So it's about that expansive vision.
Exactly. They're not afraid of the unknown.
And they're comfortable working with data, right?
Oh, absolutely. They're data savvy,
Mm.
but they also trust their intuition.
And they're willing to make bold decisions.
Even with incomplete information.
Exactly. It's a balance of analytical thinking and creative vision.
That's interesting.
It is.
But there's a difference between taking risks and actively disrupting your own business.
Right.
Most companies would rather protect what they've built than jeopardize their existing products.
But digital leaders understand that to stay ahead,
Right.
you have to innovate.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that means disrupting yourself.
So they're not afraid to cannibalize their own products.
Exactly. If they don't, someone else will.
Okay, so we've got big thinking data fluency
Mm-hmm.
and a willingness to disrupt.
Right.
What else characterizes a digital leader?
Well, another key thing is their customer focus.
Okay.
They're obsessed with the customer experience.
Right.
They're always looking for ways to improve the customer journey.
And build those deeper relationships.
Absolutely. It's not just about selling something.
Right.
It's about creating an ecosystem
Uh,
that revolves around the customer and delivers exceptional value.
exactly.
So it's about more than just a good product or platform.
Very much so.
Okay, so we've got big thinking data fluency, a willingness to disrupt, and a customer obsession.
Right.
What else is there?
Well, there's also this idea of empowering teams and building a strong social engine.
Okay, so it's about leadership style.
It is digital leaders recognize that they can't do everything themselves.
Right.
They need to build great teams
Uh-huh.
and create a culture of collaboration.
Okay, so it's less about being a traditional command and control leader
Exactly.
and more about being a facilitator, a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
someone who empowers their team
Mm.
to take risks and achieve great things.
Absolutely. A great example of this is Bob Iger.
The CEO of Disney.
Yeah, he came from a traditional media background.
Right.
But he embraced digital principles
Mm-hmm.
and he steered Disney into the streaming era.
With Disney Plus.
Exactly. He made some bold moves.
Like acquiring Pixar and Marvel.
And Lucasfilm.
Right, it was a big gamble.
It was, but it paid off.
He really transformed Disney.
It did.
That's a pretty inspiring story of leadership.
It is. It shows that you can adapt and thrive in this digital age,
Right.
even if you didn't start out as a digital native.
So the rules of the game have really changed, haven't they?
They have.
It's not enough to be a successful company anymore. You
Mhm.
have to be a digital company.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think differently, operate differently, and lead differently.
The digital giants have raised the bar,
Yeah.
and any company that wants to compete has to adapt. It's not just about technology.
Right.
It's about a fundamental shift in mindset,
Right.
strategy,
Right.
and leadership.
Wow, that's a lot to take in.
It is, but it's essential.
It is, and it's fascinating, too.
It is. It's an exciting time to be in business.
It is, even with all the challenges.
Absolutely. There are so many opportunities out there.
Absolutely.
I mean, it really is changing the whole game of business.
It is, and one of the things that really stood out to me in the book was how these digital businesses think about finances.
Oh, yeah. Totally different approach.
It's not just about chasing profits like traditional companies. It's more about this idea of cash flow and the law of increasing returns.
The law of increasing returns, that's a key concept.
It kind of blew my mind a little bit, to be honest.
Well, it challenges a lot of conventional wisdom about how businesses should operate.
Right.
But it makes sense when you think about it. Digital companies often have incredibly low marginal costs.
So once they've built their platform and their ecosystem,
Exactly. The cost of serving each additional customer is tiny.
so they can grow rapidly without their expenses going up at the same rate.
Precisely. And that's where the law of increasing returns comes in.
Okay.
As their customer base grows, their revenue explodes.
Mm-hmm.
But their costs stay relatively flat.
So like a snowball effect.
It is the bigger they get, the more momentum they gain.
And the more cash they generate.
Exactly. And that cash flow fuels their ability to reinvest,
Right.
to expand into new markets.
And just crush the competition.
Pretty much. And investors are catching on to this too.
So they're willing to accept losses in the early stages.
If they see the potential for massive growth down the line.
Because they understand the dynamics of the digital economy.
Exactly. It's a whole different investment philosophy.
Okay, so we've talked about customer experience,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of platforms and ecosystems,
Right.
this unique financial approach.
Right.
But let's shift gears a bit and go back to the people.
Okay.
This whole idea of building a social engine really intrigued me.
The social engine is crucial.
So it's about fostering a culture and organizational structure
Right.
that really allows for innovation and agility.
Absolutely. The book argues that people, culture, and work design are just as important as technology.
So you can have the best technology in the world
But if you don't have the right people,
and the right culture.
you're not going to succeed.
So how do these digital companies actually structure themselves differently?
Well, one key thing is their reliance on small, integrated teams.
Instead of these big hierarchical departments,
Exactly. They break down those silos.
and empower individuals to collaborate.
Precisely. It creates a much more nimble and responsive organization.
Which is essential in the fast-paced digital world.
Absolutely. You have to be able to adapt quickly.
Okay, but that also implies a need for a different type of leadership.
Oh, for sure.
So how do leaders in these digital companies differ from the leaders who thrived in more traditional settings?
Well, for one thing, they're really good at seeing the big picture.
Okay,
They're not afraid to think outside the box.
so they're visionaries.
They're not content with just incremental progress.
Right.
They want to disrupt the status quo.
And create entirely new markets.
Exactly. They're not afraid of the unknown.
And they're comfortable working with data,
Oh, absolutely. They're data-driven.
but they also trust their gut.
Right. They're not afraid to make decisions based on incomplete information.
That's a tough balance to strike.
It is. It requires a different skill set.
And a different mindset.
For sure, digital leaders have to embrace ambiguity
Empower their teams.
and constantly be learning and adapting.
It seems like just being a good manager isn't enough anymore.
It's not.
You need to be a transformational leader.
Someone who can guide their organization through these periods of rapid change.
And disruption.
Exactly. And those leadership qualities are becoming more and more important.
As digital technologies continue to disrupt every industry,
It's the new reality.
it's a whole new playbook for leadership.
And speaking of playbooks,
Yes.
I thought the book's breakdown of the new rules of competition was really helpful.
It was great framework for understanding how these digital companies operate.
Right.
It would be good to recap those 6 rules,
Sure.
just in case anyone needs a refresher.
Absolutely. So the first rule is all about the customer experience.
Okay.
Digital companies are obsessed with delivering amazing experiences.
It's not just about selling a product anymore.
Right. It's about building relationships.
And creating value. Okay, what's the second rule?
The second rule is all about data and algorithms.
So using data to make better decisions.
Exactly. And to personalize offerings.
And to optimize operations.
It's all about leveraging data effectively.
Okay, rule number 3.
Rule number 3 is that competition is now happening at the ecosystem level.
So it's not just company versus company.
It's ecosystem versus ecosystem.
Wow.
Digital companies build these vast networks of partners
Right.
and suppliers and developers.
So it's about understanding your place in that larger network.
Exactly.
And creating value within that network.
Precisely. Okay. Rule number 4 is about financial strategy.
Okay.
Digital companies are focused on cash flow.
Not just earnings per share.
Right. They understand the power of the law of increasing returns.
So it's about building a sustainable model that generates cash.
Exactly.
Okay, rule number 5.
Rule number 5 is all about building a strong social engine.
So that's the people, the culture, the work design.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment that supports agility
Cul-
and a customer-centric approach.
So the human element is crucial.
Absolutely.
And finally, rule number 6.
Rule number 6 is about leadership.
Yeah, okay.
Digital leaders are visionary,
Uh-huh.
they're data-driven, and they're incredibly adaptable.
So they're constantly learning and pushing the boundaries.
Exactly.
Wow, those are 6 pretty powerful rules.
They represent a whole new way of thinking about business.
That's a lot to take in.
It is, but it's essential for anyone who wants to thrive in this digital age.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of ground today,
We have
from the rise of digital giants,
to the changing nature of competitive advantage
the importance of leadership.
and building a strong social engine.
It's clear that the rules of the game have changed.
They have, and the pace of change is only accelerating.
So what does all of this mean for our listeners?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that digital transformation is no longer just about technology.
Right.
It's about a fundamental shift in mindset.
And strategy.
Exactly. It's about embracing new ways of thinking
Operating.
and leading.
And it's not just for tech companies anymore.
Right. Every business is being impacted by digital technology.
Though every leader needs to understand how to navigate this new landscape.
Absolutely. Digital transformation is no longer optional.
It's essential for survival.
I couldn't agree more.
I mean, it's amazing to see how the whole business landscape is being reshaped.
It is. It's both exciting and a little bit scary.
Definitely. But I think Rethinking Competitive Advantage does a good job of giving us a framework for understanding it all,
I think so too. It's a really practical guide.
with lots of real-world examples.
Exactly. It's not just theory.
Right, so if you had to distill everything we've discussed into, say, 10 key takeaways for our listeners.
10 takeaways. Okay, let's see. First, I'd say obsess over the customer experience.
Not just good customer service.
No, a seamless, personalized experience that really wows them at every touch point.
Because customer centricity is everything in the digital world.
It really is. Okay, number 2, embrace data and algorithms.
Experiment with new technologies.
Exactly. Find ways to gather insights, personalize your offerings, and optimize your operations.
Because data is power.
It is the more you can leverage it, the better.
All right, number 3.
Number 3, build a strong ecosystem.
So recognize that you're part of a larger network.
Right, and find ways to collaborate and create value within that network.
Okay, number 4.
Number 4, adopt a cash flow mindset.
So don't get too fixated on short-term profits.
Right. Prioritize long-term growth and invest in building a sustainable business model that generates cash.
That's a big shift for a lot of companies.
It is, but it's essential in the digital age.
Okay, number 5.
Foster a culture of agility and innovation.
So empower your teams, break down silos, encourage experimentation.
Exactly. You have to be able to move quickly and adapt to change.
Because the digital world is constantly evolving.
It is. There's no standing still.
Okay, what's number 6?
Number 6 is to really get to know your customer.
So go beyond basic demographics,
Yes. Build those detailed customer personas that we talked about.
right? Really understand their needs, their motivations, their aspirations,
And use that understanding to guide everything you do.
from product development to marketing to customer service.
Exactly. It's all about the customer.
Okay, number 7.
Number 7 is think big and embrace the unknown.
So challenge conventional wisdom,
Disrupt the status quo. Explore uncharted territory.
because the digital landscape is constantly changing.
It is, and if you're not willing to experiment and take risks, you're going to get left behind.
Okay, number 8.
Invest in your people.
Attract top talent.
Create a culture that values learning and collaboration and innovation.
Give your employees the opportunity to grow and develop.
Because your people are your most valuable asset.
Couldn't agree more. Number 9.
Prioritize digital literacy.
So make sure everyone in your organization has a basic understanding of digital technologies and concepts
Exactly. You need a digitally fluent workforce.
to really harness the power of technology.
Absolutely.
And finally, number 10,
Lead with vision, courage, and adaptability.
be a transformational leader.
Guide your organization through the challenges of digital transformation.
Embrace the unknown and inspire your team.
Because the digital age demands a new breed of leader.
Wow, that's quite a list. 10 actionable insights for navigating the digital world.
It's a lot to think about, but I think it's a good starting point.
I agree. It's a lot to digest.
Now remember, this is an ongoing process.
Right. The digital world is constantly changing.
You have to keep learning, keep adapting, and keep pushing the boundaries.
Absolutely. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. But with the right mindset and strategies.
Any company can succeed.
I believe that.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
Thank you for walking us through Rethinking Competitive Advantage.
It's been my pleasure.
I think our listeners have a lot to think about
I hope so.
and a lot to learn.
Absolutely.
So until next time, keep learning, keep innovating, and keep pushing the boundaries.
Couldn't have said it better myself.